Hi, writers and readers. How are you all doing today? I hope you are having a great weekend. This is Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, which is fantastic because I have tomorrow off, which means some extra writing will get done. Yes, yes, yes. I'm very excited about that. Any holiday means I get to write a little more. So today's topic is going to be me responding to, there was an article in The Guardian. And the full title of it is No, the Other Fire and Fury When Books Share Titles. Apparently, before the recent book, Fire and Fury by Michael Wolff, there was also one that was a national bestseller by Randall Hansen. And it was about, it was a war nonfiction book. And so this inspired, it seems, The Guardian to write sort of what I am seeing as like an observational piece about how sometimes books share titles and sometimes authors share the same name and what that can cause. But I had a number of things that I felt there was a lot more actually there. And I actually have just a few notes so that I don't forget some of the things that I wanted to bring up to you. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. Basically, what they cover is the fact that when a bigger author publishes a book that is named the same thing as a smaller author's book, that smaller author tends to sell a ton all of a sudden. So I will read you their example. They say, regarding the Fire and Fury mix-up, the author who had published 10 years earlier, I think they said, Hansen. They say, yet Hansen, a Canadian academic, wryly revealed this week that the shared title had helped his 10-year-old study to return to 3 of Amazon's category bestsellers. So he made it back onto the bestseller list and was making a lot off of this duplicate, not duplicate title, but they're actually pretty different. The whole title of Hansen's book is The Allied Bombing of Germany, 1942 to 1945, which is very clearly different than Fire and Fury inside the Trump White House. But people are buying it anyway. So I think that's kind of interesting, and I have heard this stuff before, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I have a lot of knowledge in this area, I think. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who have more to say about it than me too. But they're saying that this is not the first little-known author to benefit from a nominal muddle, and they start naming some people. And, you know, one quote from someone is that they were starting to get a big royalty check when Stephen King's book, Joyland, was titled the same as her book that was published way before, I think. And so there are similar things all the way around. You know, the super famous David Mitchell book, Cloud Atlas. There was another book called The Cloud Atlas before that, I think. And suddenly this person is making a ton of money because people are buying that book instead, whether it's because they discover it or whether it's because they accidentally bought it. So they're saying that it can be confusion between the books with similar titles. It can be confusion between people with similar names. And especially, you know, they also brought out one thing where 2 authors were doing seasonal quartets, they called it, at the same time, basically simultaneously, not always like on the same day, but basically simultaneously, even sometimes for like one of those books. Some confusion, but it can also result in a ton of sales. And this is still me reviewing what they said, and then I'm going to go into what I have to say about it. They also say that there are overlaps with the slew of girl titles. And what they mean by that is like Gone Girl, The Girl on the Train, Dragon Tattoo. And so they're saying they're more than coincidences, falling into a spectrum between conscious copying and doing nothing to prevent confusion. So, you know, and then they also go into the same kind of thing with shared names. There is someone named Stephen King and someone named Stephen D. King. So I think, you know, in those, hi, good coffee, how are you doing? I think that, you know, we get the point. What I wanted to say is that their piece is somewhat observational and just sort of says like, this is the case and we noticed this. And sometimes it seems to put the onus on the indie author, you know, oh, you're making a lot of money off of this, indie author, you know, and I wanted to go through some things that make that either not true or that there are other reasons this kind of thing is done or it happens. Because I think it's really important to sort of hash that out in more depth. So the first thing I wanted to say, I'm going to my list so I don't forget, is what they already said with the accidental naming. That's fine. You know, you earn money accidentally. The problem turns out when people are annoyed that they bought the same book. Some people, there was I don't know if you call it a scandal or what, but a while back when someone was naming their books extremely similarly to the Harry Potter ones. And that was a big deal because it was way too close. It was like, I think that they were saying Harry Potter and then they would put like a different title that didn't exist. And that is sneaky. You are definitely doing that on purpose, you know, and you don't have the right necessarily to use the Harry Potter name. That's more, I guess, would fall under fan fiction or something like that. Taylor Talk says, what's more annoying about girl being in every title is having the same hunky dude on every other cover. Amber says, yeah, I've said the same thing. That's true. And that can be also hard to tell the difference, even with the same author. Did I buy this book already or didn't I? It looks like the same model. And across books, some people use the same models, and that can get confusing too. And that's not always on purpose. It can be that that model's picture is less expensive than other models. That's one thing I have seen. There's a particular girl that's used for a lot of vampire books. And wow, you know, she's become almost famous because of that. I've just seen her on so many covers. Amber says, also, I've seen the same exact cover, only with a different color dress or different color hair. So same pose, everything. Okay. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Amber. I want to warn you guys, in case you don't know about this, that there are some cover design websites that actually put up, oh, we're going to give you a unique cover that nobody else has, but they use the same pictures over and over, changing the colors. You have to be very careful and look through their repertoire. When you see somebody saying, oh, we make these super unique covers and stuff, just look through what they've created to make sure that that is actually true. Because I almost fell into that once when I was looking for just something that was not a major piece of mine. I was looking for, this is going to be published in the future. It was a book cover that I wanted to be unique, but I did not want to spend, you know, hundreds of dollars on this one. I wanted it to be less expensive. And I went there and did this one particular website and saw that it said unique. And I saw the same guy on all these covers, but his hair was blonde. So technically it's unique. Blonde here, brown hair there, black hair there, you know, or like Amber said, it's the same exact person with a different color dress, which is extremely disappointing and is, I consider it a lie. They can probably stretch the term unique. I don't like that at all. Hey, Mike, how are you doing? Oh, glad you made it. Awesome to see you here. Good Coffee also says, oh my goodness, yes, I've seen the same pick and covers over and over, especially with self-published authors. Absolutely. It drives me a little bit nuts. I do understand, though, that some Shutterstock images, for example, are less expensive and some people are on a budget. So, but I would go out of my way to find a model that has not been used by everyone, if possible. I don't know if you know this, but I believe on Shutterstock, there is an area where you can, I think you can click on more recent images or something like that that have not been used as much. I think it's called like Discover or something like that. So in case you're looking for that, probably fewer people have used those. So going back to the topic at hand, I just wanted to point out the fact that indie authors don't always benefit from having the same title. And I'm going to give you a number of reasons why, but I'm just looking at, yeah, but still if people do their research, you can't prevent that. That's absolutely true. Yeah, you can't prevent if somebody copies your cover of Good Coffee, and sometimes they're within their rights because it's a Shutterstock image and it's just close, but not exactly the same, you know? Yeah, absolutely. So some indie authors do not benefit from that name being the same in the way that, like, let's say their book title is the same title, but they didn't mean for it to be, like, they published first. Somebody buys their book thinking it's going to be this major author. Turns out it's an indie author book. They sometimes return that book. Sometimes they complain about it. They leave a 1-star review. This does not mean every indie author is making tons of money off of actually naming the book the same. And that was the one thing I felt they really should not have left out, because it makes it look like indie authors just are profiting left and right from naming the book the same as other titles. And that is not true. So I wanted to make sure you guys are aware that that is not necessarily a get rich quick scheme. It can really hurt your reputation. It can hurt your book, and it can cause a lot of problems. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to say is using the same title keywords as a popular book. Okay, so this goes back to like using girl or something like that in the title. When they're saying that, there are some books that are named with that convention, and they see that girl is being used, and they try to make, indie authors try to make their own that way. It made it sound in the article to me a little bit like, okay, well, we're using this in a not necessarily deceptive way, but kind of sort of. They almost said it without saying it. In my opinion, maybe you could read it differently. Maybe it's because I am an indie author and I get easily offended by these things. But what I do want to point out, as many of you probably may know, this was a strategy that was recommended by many, many smaller publishing houses, by many self-publishing platforms. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say Writer's Digest. I'd have to look that up. But major platforms is what I'm trying to say. And so this is not something that came out of nowhere where people are just like, oh, let me just use that girl title so somebody will accidentally buy my book and I'll make a ton of money. It was recommended. This is something that was everywhere a few years ago, maybe like 2 years ago, maybe even 1 year ago. And so I can't really fault indie authors because they were reading everywhere. We were all reading everywhere that this is something you should do. So, you know, that's frustrating because it's not really on purpose always. It's not always like a deceptive, I want to make money off of this. It is I would like my book to show up closer to the top type of thing. That was what the recommendation was for. That was why it was shown as a strategy, because if your name appears below the girl on the train, people are more likely to see you and they might be more likely to buy your book. So just keep that in mind, that was a strategy and it was considered good business practice. Hey, Joe. I'm sorry I'm late. It's silly. Don't be sorry you're late. Okay. So I wanted to also say that the opposite can happen. The opposite can happen where you name your book something either the same or similar to something that's been done a million times. And you might just do that because it may not be because you want to be seen. It may be because you have other reasons. So I'm going to use myself as an example. I named my recent book Lock and Key. There's a major series based on that name, Lock and Key. Theirs ends with an E, lock with an E, and then and key, just spelled regularly. Mine, both words end with an E. Lock ends with an E, key ends with an E. The reason I personally did that is because in my book collection, I have I'm going to be, publishing a whole number of books, and a few of them are going to be named after shops that appear in my original book, Anatomy of a Darkened Heart, and will appear in other books as well. So I'm taking the shop names and basing an entire, whether it's a novelette, novella, novel, I'm basing the whole thing around that shop. That's the point. So I named it Lock and Key because it's a locksmith shop. The guy's name is Mr. Lock, and there is a reason behind key having an E, and you have to read the book to find out why. But I didn't really think about the fact that somebody else's major series was named almost the exact same thing. When I did see that, I said, well, I already have this plan, and it makes sense for me. So I'm going to go with it. Well, guess what? I don't get seen more. I get seen less. I'm actually suffering for that because that Lock and Key series has a ton of volumes in it. And they are sold by, that's a major publishing company. The author is huge. I believe it's Joe Hill, but correct me if I'm wrong. And like I said, there are so many books in the series that have so many reviews, and it is so popular that my book falls to the bottom. In fact, if you put in my book name, it'll tell you, Amazon's going to tell you that you're spelling the book name wrong, which you're not. You're looking for my book, but they think it's that major book series. And so they keep saying, no, you meant Lock and Key without an extra E at the end of key. That's frustrating because people might say, oh, I guess I made a mistake. Click on that. And then I don't get found, so I actually suffer for that. I don't benefit at all. That's a shame. It's just the way it is. But it is something that you guys should consider if you're thinking of duplicating or closely duplicating a book name, whether it's on purpose or not. Think about the fact that your book, if there are volumes out there named the same thing, may fall to the bottom, especially if you're an indie author with not a ton of reviews yet. It could be a problem. So I just kind of wanted to point out that this article, I didn't think really pointed out all the aspects of this, and the fact that it's not always on purpose, that it is a strategy that was recommended for a long time, and that we suffer, actually. We can suffer from that. JB says, and his YouTube channel is Taylor Talks, I think book sharing titles can't be helped. Sometimes things just happen, Christy. Your book has a title matching another author I dig, no doubt a coincidence, but that proves these things happen. Exactly what I'm talking about. And like I said, that was not on purpose. And sometimes I think, would I take it back if I could? And the answer is no, because another book is going to be called Love's Bloom. I have no idea how many titles are out there with Love's Bloom, but that's the name of the store. And that is my whole point. So, you know, I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe I'll have to change my strategy. Maybe I can't be so stubborn as to just stick with that. I'm not really sure yet. We'll see. But if you're writing a standalone book, if you're planning your series from scratch, you should probably check and see who else has the title. If they're huge authors that have a bunch of titles named that, if there are already a bunch named similar or the same thing, you could end up suffering for it. And the other thing is choosing a pen name or just happening to be named the same author name. What if your name really is Stephen D. King? What do you have to choose a pen name now? I think that's a really good question. And I think that that's something that maybe we'll talk about on the Writer's Edge, because I do want to do an episode on pen names sometime maybe like April, May, whenever we have a looser schedule, because right now we're scheduled out until March, at least. So I definitely want to do that. Good Coffee says, question, do you ever Google names of the title before you choose one? I do. Yes, 100% Good Coffee. Not Lock and Key. That was because I had already chosen a strategy that obviously did me some harm there. But I will tell you, with my first book, Anatomy of a Darkened Heart, that was the first thing I did. I thought of the name. I spent all this time coming up with a name, thought of the name, and searched it on Amazon right away to see if it was something new or something that had already been done a million times. And I found that nobody else had it, and that's why I kept it also. Besides the fact that I wanted that name, I kept it because nobody else had it. And I have noticed that on Goodreads and on Amazon, people have found my book who I don't know at all. That could be because of the good reviews it has, which is great. It could be because of word of mouth. It could be anything. They've read a review they like. But for them to come across the title could also have to do with the fact that it's not hard for them to find it. So I think that that is a great strategy. I feel, and my collection name is also the Dark Victoriana collection. I did the same thing with that. I went on to Amazon and I looked it up and I wanted to see, does anybody have this? They didn't, so I took it. Had I named it, I don't know, Victorian something common, Victorian, I don't know, Dark Victorian, something that could have been more common, maybe I would have had a problem with the series title. But I would check, if I were you, if you're not married to anything or if you haven't started it yet, I would definitely check the book title and the series title. Some people have book title, series title, and then like an overarching title above that. I would check everything if you can. That's my advice. Oh, thanks, JB. That's really kind of you. So yeah, I would, Amber says, yeah, I would feel pretty confident saying Christie's Lock and Key would be completely different. Yeah, it is totally, totally different than the Joe Hill book. So I'm definitely not going to get there. I think they might even be different genres. One is a graphic novel series and one is Victorian and much darker. And well, I don't know about darker, but very, very different everything. So if they found my book, they should be able to tell the difference. And that's the other thing I wanted to bring up. It does shock me sometimes that people will blind buy something. Like readers will sometimes just look up a title and hit the buy button, it seems, because like I said, that one title, the Fire and Fury book, we've got Fire and Fury, the Allied bombing of Germany, 1942 to 1945. And then we have Fire and Fury inside the Trump White House. Totally different covers, totally different names. The only similarity is that it says Fire and Fury. You know, it just surprises me that somebody wouldn't realize, like, wait a minute, this has, you know, German or just not even German, but just planes that are sending down bombs. This does not look like what I was looking for, you know? So If I Googled, Amber says, yeah, I think if I'd Googled my name, I would have taken a pen name. Yeah, Amber was talking about that before. There is an erotica author with a similar name to hers. So that's a good point. Google your pen name that you want to take too. If you want to take a pen name, if it's your real name, can't hurt to Google it, see what's out there. You may find that your name is connected to stuff you don't want to be connected to as an author, not as a person, as an author, and it may be too close. Peter Clark is always a really good sense of entertainment. If you haven't checked out his channel, you have to. Fire and Fury, The Squirrel's Return. I might like that better than both of these books, Michael. I mean, Peter. Michael. So anyway, yeah, it surprises me, but it does seem to me, and we have to accommodate this, that some readers do just auto-click. And so that can be a positive, that can be a negative, but just keep in mind that if you name your book something that's already out there, it could fall, further on the list, but your book could also get returned and get a 1-star review if somebody expected that other book. Obviously it's not your fault if you published it first, but if you're planning this and you think it's a good strategy, just consider that. That's all. So that's about all I had to say for this one. Just wanted to share some of that stuff with you guys so you have a little bit more of a well-rounded picture and you can judge for yourselves what you want to do. Next week, I already have my topic, and it's going to be, of course, how did you know that my pen name was Peter and my real name was Michael? I'm really, really genius, Peter. It's so funny. Next week, it's going to be the same time as with every week. It's going to be Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm going to be talking about my writing bucket list. There are certain things that I want to write before I die. I'm pretty young, so I've got a long way to go. But anyway, why not start one now? There are so many things in my brain that I want to make sure that I do that I started making a list. And it's not just, I'm not just going to talk about genres. I'm not just going to talk about specific books, but I'm going to talk about writing sort of circumstances and situations, where I want to write something, the way I want to write something, stuff like that. So tune in next week. And if you have a writing bucket list, definitely share it in the comments when we do that. Maybe think about it before then. It's a lot of fun, actually. Kind of make sure that you have that somewhere so that you don't forget, Thank you, Good Coffee. Yeah, it's a fun one. So I'll be doing that. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see yet, but Joe Compton already put up my coffee break with him on Go Indie Now. So that's really exciting. He asked me a bunch of questions I've never been asked before. So go check that out if you have a second. And this week, I'm going to be stepping in for Joe as he's going to a really exciting event. Go Indie Now is now considered the press, and he's going to have access to an awesome indie event, film event, where he's going to be interviewing these indie film creators, actors, all kinds of people. So I'm going to be taking over This Week in Indies for him on my own channel right here. So if you're not subscribed yet, definitely subscribe, hit the notification bell so you see me go live with that. JB Taylor is going to be on, who is here right now. And Courtney Cannon is going to be on as well. Joe is going to try to join us if he gets the chance, but we're going to do what we always do, which is going to be talking about news articles first. We are going to deal with, by the way, the Facebook fiasco that is going on right now. If you guys didn't know, which I'm sure you do, it was actually on Facebook's top news. Facebook is now downgrading the position that, like, with their algorithm, the position that pages, communities, groups, all kinds of stuff like that take on Facebook. So you're not going to see posts from pages and groups and stuff as often as you were before, if at all. So there are reasons behind that. We're going to talk about that and probably a couple other major topics. And then we'll go into JB Taylor, he's going to have, I think, a movie review, and Courtney Cannon will have some awesome stuff for us as well. So it's a busy and exciting week, and I can't wait to see you guys on that for that. And like I said, hit the notification bell so you can see when I go live, and then you don't have to try to remember. You can just see me go. So thank you guys so much for coming. I really enjoy doing these and just being able to speak, about whatever is going on and what's going on with me and stuff like that. And I love when you guys have things to say about it. And this seemed to be a hot topic, especially with the book covers. So thank you so much for participating and being here. And I will see you next week, pretty much all throughout the week on different places. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys later. Have a great weekend.